Ms. Nielsen, it's great to see you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your willingness to continue serving our nation as our Secretary of Homeland Security. Regarding leadership, I think it's a fair question from Senator Carper. I will note that two prior Secretaries of Homeland Security both have stated that you are a leader for our times in a letter that was submitted to the committee, as well as a son of a U.S. Marine, a four-star Marine that sat right there not too long ago. The fact that he put his full confidence in you to lead that organization, working with him, tells me a lot about his confidence in your leadership. And I have a lot of confidence in General Kelly, Secretary Kelly, Chief of Staff Kelly here of picking great people to lead organizations. So I'm confident in your leadership abilities. Ms. Nielsen, one of the greatest and undertold successes of this administration has been the result of President Trump signaling that the United States will enforce its laws. This has led to quantifiable improvements at DHS under the leadership of General John Kelly and then Secretary Kelly with you as your Chief of Staff. Apprehension rates for illegal southwest border crossings have dropped nearly 30% year to date compared to last year, and some months have seen over a 60% reduction. Drug seizures have increased by many measures, and morale has improved as well. In your pre-hearing questionnaire, you stated border security was the highest priority from a risk perspective. As Secretary, how will you maintain this positive trajectory we've already seen, mitigating the risk and further securing our borders?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You know, I would just offer, I think deterrence plays a key part here, deterrence and partnership. When I was at DHS as Chief of Staff under then Secretary Kelly, we had the opportunity to travel and meet with government officials in our southern neighbors and to tell them very publicly and to speak directly to their people in some cases, please don't take this dangerous journey. It's dangerous to you, it's dangerous to your children. You are putting you're putting your life in the hands of those who have no other concern for you than the money that they can take from you, trying to smuggle you or traffic you across the border. So I think the constant communication with the partners is important. Deterrence is important, and the part of deterrence that I think General Kelly was very successful at is making very clear we will enforce our laws. It's vital that we do so. We will do so. Should I be confirmed, I intend to do so. We also need that mix on the border that you and I have talked about. So it's not just people, it's not just physical barriers, but it is that technology, and it is the policies and procedures that enable us to sense and quickly respond. So something seemingly as simple as a road along a piece of physical barrier enables us to actually monitor it and respond should a threat be able to get past. So there's a variety of things we can do in conjunction with state and local governments that I would plan on continuing.
Well, I appreciate, too, your comments on the humanitarian side as it relates to what's going on as we are enforcing the law, what impact that's having on children, on vulnerable young men and young women. Those coyotes that you mentioned.
Yes.
When we see a four-legged coyote in Montana, we have a certain response that I won't talk about here. But let's just say I'm grateful to see both the hard number results we're seeing coming off the southern border now through your leadership, but importantly, the softer area of helping these women and children, young people who would otherwise be very vulnerable to what happens when they're trying to make the crossing. Ms. Nielsen, as we discussed, I spent 28 years in the private sector before I put a suit and tie on and came up to this hill. 12 years with a global cloud computing company. We face cyber threats daily. And we were delivering security for customers, many of which were Fortune 500 clients. You also have an extensive background in cybersecurity. Recently, in Columbia Falls, Montana, the school district was hacked from overseas. They were using the stolen data of children and faculty to make very violent and very direct threats. Crimes of this nature surpass the authorities and the resources of state and local law enforcement, and we were very grateful for and dependent upon resources coming from the federal government to get to the bottom of this threat. As the Secretary of Homeland Security, if confirmed, you'll lead the whole of the government's cyber efforts. How will you work to make our citizens and their personal information safer from these worldwide attacks?
Thank you, sir, and I did enjoy our extensive cyber conversation. Thank you for having that with me. I think when we look at information, the threat has changed. I would, if I were sitting here maybe even 10 years ago, talk a lot about confidentiality. Data breaches continue to this day, as you know, but what is perhaps more concerning is the ability of those who would do us harm through the internet to change the integrity of that information, or through ransomware and other attacks to make it not available. So what happened in the example that you gave was they both were able to get in, take the information, and then use it for a nefarious purpose. That's different than the more traditional criminal data breaches that we had been dealing with over the last 15 years, which still exist, but we've morphed now into perhaps more dangerous area. In particular, the integrity of information, whether we're talking about control systems or your blood type, my blood type, I would like it to be correct should I have a need to go to the hospital. So ensuring that we have integrity of information, we have the resilience built in, redundancy for key assets to include information becomes vital. When I look at the way in which we have worked as the department over the last 13 years, I think it has served us well to develop and create partnerships within the private sector, state and local governments. But what we need to do perhaps is the next step, the next evolution is to look across sectors, across regions, and to really look at those critical assets and critical pieces of information that we need to ensure that we're protected. In my view, there is an enhanced federal role in that protection.
Thank you. I'm out of time. I will, another concern I have about where this is all headed is in the area of actually of quantum computing. And the fact that our nation very likely may not be in the leadership position anymore in terms of that cutting-edge technology ability for perhaps others to break encryption, and that threat that is over the next hill here that is looming even closer as we speak. I look forward to seeing you in Montana.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get a chance to talk about the northern border, but we have one. And we'd love to take you up to the northern part of our state and take a look what's going on there with our northern border. Thank you.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you, Senator Daines. By the way, I share your concern that we're not potentially in the leadership position on quantum computing. It represents a real threat, so that is something we need to keep our eye on.